On the left, Bill Maher, mid-sentence, gesturing with his right index finger. He's in a dark blazer, white shirt, and jeans. Classic host in a debate mode. And on the right, Matthew McConaughey, leaning back, making eye contact, hands resting on the chair. He's wearing a herringbone blazer over a dark shirt, very much in listening/responding mode. The real-time studio. You can see the show logo on the screen behind Bill, and climate policy on the screen behind Matthew. There's a small glass table with water between them, and the studio audience plus control room in the background. What happens when Matthew McConaughey walks onto a live set with Bill Maher and a conversation meant to be easy suddenly takes a serious turn in front of a live audience? Make sure to subscribe to Fame After Hours and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience is already clapping as Matthew walks out, relaxed, smiling, giving a small wave. Bill stands just enough to shake his hand, then gestures for him to sit. "Good to have you here," Bill says, settling back into his chair. "Good to be here," Matthew replies, calm as ever. The applause fades, and there's that brief silence where the show usually eases into things. But Bill doesn't take long. "So, you've been talking a lot lately," he begins, glancing at his notes. "Unity, understanding, not picking sides. Sounds good on paper." A few light laughs from the audience. Matthew nods slightly. "Yeah, I think it's important." Bill tilts his head. "Important? Sure, but also a little convenient, right?" There's a soft ooh from the crowd. Matthew smiles faintly. "Convenient how?" Bill leans forward. "Well, when you don't pick a side, you don't really lose anyone." Matthew shifts slightly in his seat, still composed. "I don't think it's about not picking a side. I think it's about understanding before you decide." A few audience members clap quietly. Bill notices, smirks a bit. "That sounds nice. But people don't always have time for that. They want clarity." Matthew nods. "I get that. But clarity without understanding can be misleading." The audience reacts with a mix of murmurs and light applause. Bill taps his desk with his pen. Or maybe it's just called having a position. Matthew leans forward slightly. "And I do have positions. They're just not always simple." Bill responds quickly. "That's the problem. People don't want complicated answers all the time." Matthew gives a small shrug. "Reality is complicated." A few louder claps break out. Bill cuts through it. "Sure, but you're a public figure. People look to you for direction." Matthew shakes his head. "I don't think they should look to me for direction. I think they should think for themselves." That line gets a stronger reaction. Some applause, some surprised voices. Bill raises an eyebrow. "Then why speak out at all?" Matthew answers calmly. "To encourage that thinking." Bill leans back, studying him, or to sound good, without actually committing to anything. The audience reacts louder now. Matthew's smile fades slightly. "I disagree with that." Bill presses. "Do you?" "Because it sounds like you're trying to stay right in the middle." Matthew's tone stays even but firmer. "I'm trying to stay in the conversation." A few claps follow. Bill tilts his head again. "That's a comfortable place to be." Matthew lets out a small breath. "I don't think this is comfortable." Some laughter from the crowd. Bill continues, a bit sharper now. "It's more comfortable than taking a clear stand." Matthew leans in, matching the energy slightly. "I think taking a stand without understanding is easier, not better." The audience reacts with louder oohs. Bill doesn't smile this time. "So you think people who take a stand don't understand?" Matthew shakes his head quickly. "That's not what I said." Bill interrupts. "That's how it sounds." Matthew exhales, a little more serious now. "I'm saying the process matters, not just the conclusion." The room quiets a bit. Bill taps the desk again. "But people live in the conclusion. That's where decisions happen." Matthew nods. "True, but how you get there affects everything." A few claps break through again. Bill gestures toward the audience. "They've already gotten there. Most people have." Matthew glances briefly around the room. Some have. Some are still figuring it out. Bill responds immediately. "And they want to know where you stand while they do." Matthew pauses for a moment before answering. "I stand on trying to understand first." That line gets a mixed reaction. Bill shakes his head slightly. "That's not a clear answer." Matthew's tone firms. "It's an honest one." The tension is building now. The easy tone from the start is gone. Bill leans forward again. "You know what it sounds like? It sounds like you're avoiding saying something that might upset people." A louder ripple moves through the audience. Matthew looks directly at him. "I've upset people before. That's not new." Bill responds quickly. "Not lately." That lands harder. The room goes quieter. Matthew shifts in his chair, posture more upright now. I'm not here to measure honesty by reactions. Bill taps his pen again, slower this time. Then what are you here for? Matthew answers, steady, to have a real conversation. Bill gestures around. This is real. Matthew nods. Then let's not rush it. Bill gives a short laugh. The world doesn't slow down for conversations. Matthew responds immediately. Maybe that's part of the problem. A stronger wave of applause comes through. Bill looks out at the audience, then back at Matthew. Or maybe slowing down is just another way to avoid making tough choices. Matthew shakes his head. No, it's a way to make better ones. The audience reacts again, louder now. Bill leans back, crossing his arms slightly. You keep saying that, but you're not actually showing it. Matthew leans forward again, more direct now. I am, just not in the way you expect. Bill watches him closely. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's a pause. The audience is quieter, more focused. Bill speaks again, voice lower but sharper. Because from where I'm sitting, it still feels like you're trying to stay above the fight. A few audible reactions ripple through the crowd. Matthew doesn't smile this time. I'm not above anything. Bill responds immediately, then step into it. Matthew leans in, holding his gaze. I am in it, just not the way you want me to be. The audience reacts loudly, the biggest response so far. Bill doesn't react right away. He just looks at Matthew, then taps his desk once. See, he says quietly, that's where people start getting frustrated. Matthew nods slowly. Or maybe that's where the real conversation begins. The room goes still for a moment. No claps this time, just attention. And you can feel it clearly now. This isn't just a casual interview anymore, and it's only starting to heat up. Bill doesn't respond right away. He studies Matthew McConaughey for a moment, fingers tapping lightly on the desk, like he's deciding how far he wants to push this. So let's be clear. Bill Maher says, leaning forward again, you say you're in it, just not the way I want you to be. What does that actually mean for people watching? The audience is quiet now, fully focused. Matthew nods once. It means I'm not here to perform a side just to fit into what people expect. Bill raises an eyebrow. But expectations exist for a reason. People want to understand where you stand. Matthew keeps his tone steady. And I'm saying where I stand comes after understanding, not before. A few light claps break out. Bill gestures quickly. But you're still not answering the direct question. Matthew leans slightly forward. I am. It's just not a one-word answer. Bill lets out a short laugh. That's exactly the issue. People aren't looking for essays. They want clarity. Matthew nods. And clarity without depth can be misleading. The audience murmurs again. Bill taps his pen. You keep coming back to that. Depth, understanding. But life doesn't always give you time for that. Matthew responds calmly. Then maybe we need to stop pretending quick decisions are always the right ones. A few louder claps follow. Bill shakes his head slightly. Or maybe quick decisions are necessary. That's how things move forward. Matthew meets his gaze. Forward isn't always better if it's in the wrong direction. That line hits. Louder reactions from the audience. Bill leans back, then forward again almost immediately. See, that sounds good, but it still avoids a core issue. Matthew's expression tightens slightly, which is, Bill doesn't hesitate. Commitment. You're not committing. A ripple moves through the crowd. Matthew exhales slowly. I am committing, just not to a label. Bill responds quickly. Labels help people understand. Matthew shakes his head. They also limit understanding. Audience react with mixed voices. Some claps, some uncertainty. Bill gestures toward him again. You're asking people to do more work than they're willing to do. Matthew nods. Maybe, but that doesn't mean we lower the standard. Bill smiles faintly, but there's tension in it. That sounds like you think you're above the average person. A few whoa reactions echo. Matthew immediately responds. No, I think everyone is capable of more than we give them credit for. That earns a stronger round of applause. Bill waits for it to settle. Capable, sure, but not always willing. Matthew leans in slightly. Then maybe we should encourage willingness instead of feeding shortcuts. Bill cuts in. Or maybe shortcuts are necessary when things are urgent. Matthew answers quickly. Urgency doesn't excuse poor thinking. The audience reacts louder now. Bill points lightly with his pen. But overthinking can paralyze action. Matthew nods once. And underthinking can create problems you can't fix later. Another strong reaction, claps and oohs. There's a brief pause where both men hold eye contact. Bill breaks it first. You keep balancing everything. There's always a this but that. Matthew responds calmly, because most things aren't one-sided. Bill leans forward again. But people don't live in balance. They live in decisions. Matthew replies, and decisions are better when they're informed. Bill exhales, slightly frustrated now. You're making it sound like people who decide quickly aren't informed. Matthew shakes his head firmly. No, I'm saying speed isn't proof of understanding. A few claps break out again. Bill gestures toward the audience. They're listening to you, and they still don't know where you stand. Matthew glances briefly around, then back at Bill. Maybe that's because I'm not standing in just one place. That line gets a mixed but strong reaction. Bill shakes his head, half smiling. That's exactly what frustrates people. Matthew's tone firms slightly, or it challenges them. Bill responds quickly. People don't always want to be challenged. Sometimes they want certainty. Matthew nods. I understand that, but certainty without truth isn't helpful. The audience reacts again, louder now. Bill leans back, crosses arms briefly before leaning forward again. You keep coming back to truth, but truth usually leads you somewhere specific. Matthew answers steadily, only if you're willing to follow it fully. Bill tilts his head. And you're saying others aren't? Matthew pauses, then responds carefully. I'm saying not everyone gets a chance to. That shifts the tone slightly. The audience quiets. Bill studies him. Or they do, and they just disagree with you. Matthew nods. That's fine. I'm not asking for agreement. Bill immediately follows. Then what are you asking for? Matthew answers without hesitation. For people to think before they react. A wave of applause moves through the room. Bill lets it pass, then speaks more directly. And what if they already have? Matthew responds. Then I respect that. Bill leans in closer. But you still won't say what you do in their place. The tension spikes again. Matthew sits a bit straighter. I'm not here to tell people what to do. Bill shakes his head. But you're influencing them whether you like it or not. Matthew nods. Then I'd rather influence them to think than to follow. That line gets one of the strongest reactions so far. Bill doesn't smile. And if thinking leads them somewhere you don't like? Matthew answers calmly. Then that's their conclusion. Bill taps his desk again, slower. You're putting a lot of responsibility on the audience. Matthew responds immediately. I think they can handle it. There's a pause. Bill looks at him, then says more bluntly, you know what it feels like? It feels like you're trying to stay in a place where no one can pin you down. The audience reacts loudly. Matthew's expression is fully serious now. That's not what this is. Bill presses. Then what is it? Matthew leans forward, voice steady but more intense than before. It's mere refusing to be reduced to something simple just so it's easier to talk about. That lands hard. Loud claps and reactions. Bill nods slowly, but his tone sharpens again. Simple doesn't mean wrong. Matthew responds instantly. No, but it can mean incomplete. The audience reacts again. Bill leans in one more time. And incomplete answers don't help people. Matthew holds his gaze. Neither do rush ones. There's a beat of silence. Bill looks at him, then says more directly than before, so I'll ask you again when it really matters. Are you willing to take a clear position? The room goes quiet. Matthew doesn't look away this time. I am. Bill pauses briefly. Then take one. The audience holds its breath. And you can feel it. The conversation is right on the edge now, about to push into something even more direct, with neither side willing to back down. There's a pause that stretches longer than anything before. The audience is completely silent now, waiting. Matthew McConaughey doesn't look away from Bill Maher this time. Bill leans back slightly, but his eyes stay locked. Well, Matthew exhales slowly, then nods once. All right, he says, you want a clear position. A few audience members shift in their seats. You can feel the anticipation. Matthew continues, voice steady but heavier now. I think we created a culture where people are pushed to react before they fully understand what they're reacting to. There's a brief pause. Bill immediately responds. That's not a position. That's still commentary. Some scattered laughter, but it's tense. Matthew doesn't smile. It is a position. It means I don't support that behavior. Bill leans forward. Okay, but what do you support? Matthew answers directly. I support slowing down enough to understand the consequences of what we say and do. Bill shakes his head. That's still broad. People want specifics. Matthew's tone tightens slightly. Specifics depend on the situation. Bill cuts in. That's the kind of answer that frustrates people. The audience reacts. Some claps, some agreement. Matthew leans forward now, matching the intensity. I think what frustrates people is being told they have to pick a side before they're ready. Bill responds quickly. Or maybe they're ready and you're not. A louder reaction hits the room. Matthew pauses, then nods slowly. That's possible. But I'd rather take time than rush into something I don't fully stand behind. Bill taps his desk. And while you're taking time, things are still happening. Matthew answers immediately. Exactly. Which is why it matters that we respond thoughtfully. Bill leans in, voice sharper. Thoughtful doesn't mean effective. Matthew fires back. Neither does reactive. The audience reacts loudly, claps and oohs. There's a brief moment where both of them stop. Then Bill speaks again. Let me simplify it, he says. Do you think people should take strong positions right now or not? Matthew looks at him, then answers carefully. I think people should take positions they actually understand. Bill shakes his head. That's not what I asked. Matthew responds more firmly. It's the only answer that makes sense to me. The tension rises again. Bill leans back, then forward again almost immediately. You're still avoiding the direct answer. Matthew's expression is serious now. No, I'm refusing a false choice. The audience reacts, louder, divided. Bill raises his eyebrows. False choice. Matthew nods. Yeah, the idea that you either jump in immediately or you're somehow not engaged. A few claps break through. Bill gestures toward him. But people see hesitation as uncertainty. Matthew replies quickly, or as caution. Bill counters, or as weakness. That line hits hard. The audience reacts strongly. Matthew doesn't smile. I don't think taking time to think is weakness. Bill leans forward. Not always, but sometimes it is. Matthew responds, voice slightly firmer. Only if you never act. Bill immediately jumps in. Exactly. So when do you act? There's a pause. Matthew looks down briefly, then back up. When I'm clear on what I'm standing for. Bill presses. And how long does that take? Matthew shrugs slightly. As long as it needs to. The audience reacts, mixed. Some agreement, some frustration. Bill shakes his head. That's not how real-world decisions work. Matthew answers quickly. Maybe that's why so many real-world decisions have consequences we don't expect. A louder reaction spreads through the room. Bill leans back again, visibly frustrated now. You're turning everything into a philosophical answer. Matthew leans forward. No, I'm trying to keep it honest. Bill responds sharply. Honest would be saying where you stand without all the layers. Matthew's tone rises slightly. And I'm telling you my stance includes those layers. The audience reacts loudly again. Bill taps his desk, more forcefully this time. People don't live in layers, Matthew. They live in outcomes. Matthew answers immediately. And outcomes come from decisions. Bill fires back. Exactly. So make one. Another strong reaction. Matthew holds his gaze. I have made one. Bill pauses, which is... Matthew speaks more clearly now than at any point before. That I'm not going to be pushed into a position I haven't fully thought through just to satisfy a demand for clarity. The audience erupts, loud claps, some cheers. Bill doesn't react right away. He watches him, then leans forward slowly. So your position is not to take a position under pressure. Matthew nods once. Under pressure, yeah. Bill tilts his head. Some would say that's exactly when it matters most. Matthew responds calmly. Or when it matters most to be careful. The tension is thick now. Bill looks out at the audience briefly, then back. You realize people watching this are probably more confused than when we started. Some laughter breaks out, but it's uneasy. Matthew nods. Maybe. Or maybe they're thinking more. Bill smirks slightly. That's your goal, right? Make everyone think instead of decide. Matthew answers. My goal is to make people think before they decide. A wave of applause follows. Bill lets it settle, then says more bluntly, and if thinking leads him somewhere completely opposite of you? Matthew responds without hesitation. Then I respect that. Bill studies him closely. You really mean that? Matthew nods. Yeah. There's a pause, quieter, but still tense. Bill leans in one more time, voice lower now. But you understand why people might see this as you stay in a safe zone. The audience murmurs again. Matthew shakes his head slightly. I don't see this as safe at all. Bill raises an eyebrow. No. Matthew's voice is steady, but there's more weight behind it now. No. Because conversations like this, they don't keep everyone happy. That line lands. Bill nods slowly, then leans back, exhaling. All right, he says, but I'll tell you this. People are going to have opinions about what you just said. Matthew gives a small nod. They already do. A few light laughs break the tension slightly. Bill glances toward the camera briefly, then back at Matthew, and some of them aren't going to like it. Matthew responds calmly. That's okay. The audience reacts softened now, but still engaged. Bill looks at him for another second, then taps his desk again. All right, we're going to take a quick break. There's a mix of reactions, some applause, some lingering tension. But even as the music would normally come in, neither of them looks fully relaxed. And you can feel it clearly. Whatever happens after break, this conversation isn't cooling down. It's only getting more serious. The applause comes in a little uneven as the show returns from break. You can still feel the tension in the room. It hasn't reset. Bill Maher sits forward at his desk, and Matthew McConaughey is already settled back in his chair, but not relaxed the way he was at the start. Bill looks toward the camera briefly. All right, we're back with Matthew McConaughey. A few claps from the audience, but it's not the same energy as before. It's more cautious now. Bill turns back to Matthew. So, during the break, we were still talking. Matthew gives a small nod. Yeah. Bill continues, tone more direct than before. And I said the same thing I'll say now. People are going to watch this and still ask, what does he actually stand for? The audience murmurs lightly. Matthew leans forward slightly. And I said I'm okay with that if it makes them think a little deeper about their own stance. Bill lets out a short breath, half smile but still tense. You really don't mind leaving people without a clear takeaway? Matthew answers calmly. I think the takeaway is clear. Think before you decide. A few claps break out. Bill gestures with his hand. That's a message, sure, but it's not a position. Matthew responds. It is a position. Bill shakes his head slightly, then glances toward the audience again. This is what I mean. You're redefining what a position is. Matthew replies, steady, or expanding it. That line gets a small reaction. Bill leans back, then forward again, like he's not letting this go. You know what's interesting? Off camera, you're a little more direct. The audience reacts instantly, louder murmurs. Matthew's expression shifts just a bit. I'm being direct now. Bill raises an eyebrow. Are you? Matthew nods. Yeah. Bill pauses, then speaks more bluntly. Because off camera, you admitted that there are things you feel strongly about. You just don't want to say them in a way that gets taken out of context. The audience reacts louder, some oh, and claps. Matthew exhales but stays composed. I said context matters. Bill leans in, and I'm saying public conversations don't always allow for perfect context. Matthew responds quickly, then maybe we should be more careful with how we handle them. Bill shakes his head. Or maybe we should accept that once you're here, you got to say it clearly. Matthew's tone firms. I am saying it clearly. Bill doesn't back off. No, you're saying it carefully. A louder reaction hits the room. Matthew leans forward, matching the intensity again. Carefully doesn't mean dishonestly. Bill responds immediately, but it can mean selectively. The audience reacts, louder, oohs. Matthew pauses for a moment, then answers more firmly. I'm choosing my words because I understand the weight they carry. Bill nods slightly, but his tone sharpens. And I'm saying sometimes that weight is exactly why people want you to be more direct. Matthew replies, steady. And sometimes being direct without full context creates more problems. There's a pause. Bill looks at him, then glances toward the crew briefly. Something shifts. It's subtle but noticeable. All right, Bill says, voice a bit tighter now. We've been going in circles on this. The audience quiets again. Matthew nods slowly. Or maybe we've been looking at it from different angles. Bill gives a short, controlled laugh. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Another pause. Bill leans forward, hands on the desk now. Let me ask you something straight. Do you think conversations like this help, or do they just confuse people more? Matthew answers without hesitation. I think they help, even if they're uncomfortable. Bill tilts his head. Uncomfortable for who? Matthew responds. For everyone. That's where growth happens. A few claps break out. Bill doesn't react to them this time. He just looks at Matthew for a second longer, then exhales. All right, he says more abruptly now. I think we covered this. The tone feels different, less like a transition, more like a decision. Matthew notices it too. Feels like we're just getting into it. The audience reacts. A few claps, a few surprise sounds. Bill gives a tight smile. Yeah, well, sometimes you gotta know when a conversation isn't going anywhere. That line lands hard. The audience goes quiet. Matthew leans back slightly, but his eyes stay on Bill. Or maybe when it's going somewhere you don't like. A louder reaction breaks out. Claps. Oh! Bill's expression tightens. That's not it. Matthew replies calmly. Then what is it? There's a brief pause. Bill looks toward the side of the stage again, then back. We're moving on, Bill says more firmly. The shift is clear now. The audience feels it. Matthew nods once, but there's tension in it. All right. A few awkward claps start, but they don't build. Bill turns slightly toward the camera again. We'll be right back. The music comes in, but it feels off this time, not like a normal break. The camera would normally cut cleanly, but the moment lingers just enough for people to notice Matthew adjusting his seat, Bill not looking back at him. And that's where the real reaction begins, not in the studio, but online. Clips start circulating almost immediately after the show airs. Short segments of the exchange, the interruptions, the pauses, the sharper lines, all over social media. Some viewers side with Bill, saying he pushed for clarity and didn't get it. Others defend Matthew, saying he stayed calm and refused to be boxed in. Comments fill up quickly, people debating not just what was said, but how it was said. Was he avoiding, or was he actually thinking deeper? The divide is clear, just like it was in the audience. Behind the scenes, reports start coming out that the conversation ran longer than expected, that producer stepped in to wrap it sooner than planned. Nothing officially dramatic, but enough for people to speculate. Neither of them publicly escalates it afterward. No follow-up statements, no direct responses. Just clips, reactions, and opinions continuing to build. And that's what makes the moment stick. Not a clear resolution, but a conversation that left people choosing their own conclusions. So now it's your turn. What do you think really happened here? Was Matthew McConaughey avoiding the question, or was Bill Maher pushing for something too simple? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Fame After Hours for more real talk show stories.